And good morning. With us this morning, we have Mayor Owen Strickland from the town of Bailey. Good morning, Owen.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And for the folks that don't know, I've known Owen pretty much all my life. We both went to Southern Nash. I think you're just a few years older than me, so if I'm 35, you're about
43,
40.
probably. Yeah, 43. Yeah. And if y'all believe that, I've got some swampland behind my house to see.
Oh, baby. But yeah, we're Southern Nash alumni, and man,
My mother taught him. So
she did. She was my algebra teacher.
you can see where people go after, your relatives teach people. So.
And she ran a tight ship, man. She didn't put up with.
Yes, she did. She certainly
didn't
did.
Put up
She
with
taught
a whole lot.
She taught a heck of a lot of people in Nash County.
Yeah.
37 years teaching.
Miss Ann Strickland. Miss Ann Strickland. Yeah, she ran a tight ship. She has said my name more than once. And her and my mother actually grew up together and went to school together. And it's a small world.
It is.
It's a small world.
Is. Yeah, you be careful what you talk about and who you talk about it with, because they may be a relative of the person standing next to you.
Especially when you get into Southern Entity County, it seems like, number one, everybody knows everybody, and then half of them are related.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
Well, look, Mayor, since you've been elected, man, there's a lot of things happening. I understand that you just got back from Washington, D.C., beating the bushes, trying to get some money together to do some things for Bailey and Southern Nash County. What can you share with us?
Certainly did. During the week of the 9th, Sunday was the 9th, and I stayed there until the 13th. I attended the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference, which is a nationwide event for members of the National League of Cities. It's their ability, their main conference for you to come as elected officials. There was quite a few from North Carolina there. And it was not my first rodeo going there. I went the first time when I was on City Council in High Point, North Carolina, as a council member. And I felt like it would benefit Bailey if I attended, and I believe it did. I put together a legislative proposal with some input from our commissioners, some input from the group that is putting together the Southern Nash County Wastewater Treatment Plant project, and we went up there and asked for just a little money, about $116 million in one proposal.
But if you don't ask for it, you don't get it.
Exactly. And Bailey's share would be about $23.2 million, depending on how things work out, as would Middlesex's share. And I did ask for all the municipalities, because not all the municipalities were able to go. Not all the municipalities are members of the National League of Cities. But that was one thing when my administration started. That was one thing we made sure that we joined, because I felt like it was vitally important. It's just like being a member of the North Carolina League of Municipalities. They are very beneficial in one way. I believe the National League of Cities is beneficial in another way. So I spent pretty much an entire week there. Had the ability to speak with both senators, both Tom Tillis and Ted Budd in passing. I did sit down with both of their staffs, spoke to Senator Tillis's general counsel, which he's about third in charge in that in his hierarchy. Spoke to one of the senior legislative people for Mr. Budd, Senator Budd, and I also sat down with in a meeting with our congressional representative Don Davis, and I did call on a gentleman that I went to college with. He doesn't remember me, but I remember him, and he's fourth in line to the Speaker of the House. His name is Congressman Richard Hudson. He's out of the Alamance County, Randolph County Cabarrus, down toward Fayetteville area. But he's the chairman of the national. Yeah, he's the chairman of the National Republican Campaign Committee, which puts him in the leadership. So I was unfortunately unable to speak to him because they were trying to do the CR at the time.
Right.
He was out whipping votes when he was supposed to be meeting with me, which is perfectly fine.
It worked.
It worked out. It worked out very well,
Yeah.
I think, for
Maybe you were good luck.
the administration.
Yeah.
So, but they've invited me back later this year, and I hope to do that.
And for the folks that don't know, in Nash County, southern Nash, there's more building permits being issued for southern Nash County, especially back towards Wake County, but in that, than anywhere else in Nash County. So this infrastructure investment is important.
Very much so. We're talking about, we're trying to put in things in place to get us off the sewer moratorium. Okay, so that money's already there. But quite frankly, that will get us to a point where we can move growth a little bit with the town. However, you have to also look toward the future. And I think 400 plus thousand gallons of sewer capability for the town of Bailey would be very beneficial for growth. That's a significant size town amount of growth. So I think we can get, if we get this done, and I have been assured that they've given every indication that they're going to help us as much as they can, which is very positive in light of everything that's going on in DC right now.
Because y'all have been very patient. This has been going on for 20 or 30, all my adult life. Bailey has been under a sewer moratorium, correct?
Yep, and we are, right now, I've got an update from one of the commissioners yesterday that's deeply involved in the actual project. He indicated that our time has been pushed a little bit because infrastructure requires permitting, requires different items that have to come in to be utilized. So it'll, instead of, I was telling people it was going to be late spring, early summer. In fact, it'll probably be midsummer, late summer. I'm going to push for midsummer because that's just the way I am, and unfortunately my commissioners have to deal with that.
And this is
They've been very patient with me.
And this is going to help solve so many things in the southern end of the county because Bailey's been unable to grow, because Middlesex is kind of limited in their flow of wastewater. The town growths have almost been non-existent, which forces growth into the farmland. Okay?
Yep.
This is going to almost reverse that. It's going to give Bailey the green light to grow residentially and commercially. Same thing for Middlesex. Same thing for Spring Hope, because y'all are doing this together. This is going to be called the what?
Well, eventually, hopefully after Monday night, we're going to call it the Southern Nash County. Hold on, let me get it right. Articles of Incorporation for the Southern Nash Water and Sewer Authority. That's going to go in front of Middlesex's board Monday morning, and it's going to go in front of the Town of Bailey's board Monday evening. We're going to do a public hearing on the formation of a water and sewer authority, and once that's done, then the ball is pretty well starting to roll downhill at that point.
And
that's what we're planning.
And that should curb this sporadic development across the county that's consuming farmland.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm not badly mistaken, what Freddie's telling me is these subdivisions are not going to be able to tie in to residential sewage. And it is intentional so that it will force the growth to go to a town.
Yeah. Commissioner Howell has made it very clear in his conversations.
He wants to preserve farmland.
He would like to preserve farmland, yes. He also wants the county's part of this to be commercial and industrial. And as he said very succinctly, I think, he wants to put rooftops in towns.
That's right.
And honestly, that is where we want to be as well. The one thing that he is a county commissioner, okay?
I was hoping he would be here, and he was coming, but he had to back out this morning. He had something come up.
So that happens, but it's okay. But being a county commissioner, you have a different set of thought processes. Interior commissioners in a city have to look at tax base totally different than a county commissioner does. We understand, I understand, and I think some of our commissioners understand that residential growth is wonderful for towns. However, it is very high expense of growth. So you have to play a balancing act. You cannot just have residential growth because your tax base is not strong enough to support it. So you have to balance commercial, you have to balance industrial, and then you have to balance residential all at the same time in a town. Whereas a county doesn't necessarily have that same thought process because they have cities and towns inside their borders. So they get that tax base regardless.
Right.
We have to balance ours because our tax base needs to be strong enough to support everything we're having to do. And unfortunately, we're always revenue short, always. I mean, that's just the nature of being a town.
It's kind of like, especially in the southern end of the county, the way Zebulon, the way Wendell, the way Knightdale's growing, I would argue that if you build it, they will come.
Yes. Yes. I tend to, I have not, we have a division of labor, for lack of a better term, in Bailey's hierarchy. We have an economic development and long-range planning commissioner that handles all the incoming calls from anybody that wants to come to Bailey in an economic development manner. So I don't get that information immediately. He feeds me information when he's allowed to, and most folks, including you, know that economic development matters are very, very private until they're not. Businesses don't want to tell everybody their business because they have a business model to protect.
Right.
They have a goal in mind, and they don't want anybody stepping on that. So I totally understand that. It hurts my heart because I'm one of these people that wants to be involved, but I can't help that. I have to check my own thought process. So I allow him to take care of what he needs to take care of, as does the rest of the commissioners. That's why we have a commissioner for this, we have a commissioner for water and sewer, we have a commissioner for cemetery, and on. So.
Well, I know that you're familiar with where the new medical park is in Middlesex. Going in on 231 South there at 264, I saw a huge 4x8 sign this past week, and it says options available on this land. So I go to inquiring there around town. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, JP, national chain gas station, national chain grocery store, national chain retail are interested in this property. My gut tells me to get ready.
Yeah.
Because now it's fixing to happen.
Exactly.
So I hope we've got things in place because I think you're about to see Bailey Middlesex and Spring Hope boom in a way that not many people thought it could happen. We're here with Mayor Owen Strickland from the town of Bailey. Again, thank you for coming in, and thank you for everything you're doing for our beloved hometown of Bailey and Southern Nash County.
I appreciate it.
So
Before
now,
you get started, check my tie. Am I doing good?
Yeah, everything looks good to me.
How's everything? Okay. My someone I love very, very, very much said, "Fix your tie."
I saw you on your phone. I didn't know what was going on. Okay.
So, I love you, honey.
The people that love us, they look after us.
Exactly, yes. We talked about that during the break.
So now, where were we at? What were you saying?
We were talking about the growth profile of the two towns in the southern end of the county.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't help but grow. You got a 4-lane highway that's 28 minutes from the borders of Raleigh.
We've got
on a good day.
We've got roughly 11 million people in North Carolina. Roughly. The United States federal government is saying that within the next 5 to 6 years, we're going to have upwards of 16 million people in North Carolina.
Yeah, and they're not, and I don't know how.
That's more than the entire population of South Carolina
Yep.
is coming here and going to be here.
Right.
They're going to need a house. They're going to need a school for their children. They're going to need water and sewer. They're going to need a grocery store.
Yeah.
And I think they're coming.
They're coming regardless of whether
They
you're
are.
prepared for it or not. And we are trying our best in the town of Bailey to be prepared for it. And as I told you earlier, I want to reach out, I want to let everyone know that the new chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, Wayne Outlaw, has been very open to us as elected officials in the southern end of the county.
I like Wayne.
He has been extremely helpful so far, and we are, I've asked for some things that,
I like his leadership style too.
I do too. And, I've asked for some things that a lot of county commissioners would say, whoa, wait just a minute. I don't know how that's going to work. But he has been very open to bringing it to his board. And I can't say that for other folks. I just can't. I mean, I've seen several county commissioners' boards in my adult life, and not all of them are as open as others.
Well, let me put you on the spot, okay? Me and you both have extensive law enforcement backgrounds. We size people up in seconds. We do this. We did it for a living, okay?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And it's a skill that we honed and perfected over about a 30-year period of time, okay? What do you think about Alan Chester?
I consider the representative a very close friend of mine at this point.
I would say the same.
I don't think we could be in a better position in Nash County than to have someone like Alan. I mean, he takes care of his constituents.
I tell people he is the best House representative to represent Nash County in my lifetime.
Very much so. And he watch his career, y'all. I'm telling you, watch his career. If and his wife, she's a beautiful, wonderful lady, and she, all spouses deal with politicians,
And
But if she allows him to do the different things that their family are able to do, I believe you watch his career. I'm telling you, he's gonna be much more than a legislator at some point in his life. He's very young. He's very young in comparison to me. He's much closer to this gentleman, but
and he's a law enforcement officer, former law enforcement officer. So again, there's a lot of people that don't like me. Okay,
I've got a lot of folks like that myself.
Law enforcement officers tend to be very opinionated.
Yeah.
And you either really, really like us or you really, really don't.
Right.
There's not a middle ground.
Not
And it's
really.
because we don't have time for BS. And we're not going to get caught up in muddy water.
Right.
We're not going to get caught up in something that's illegal
Yep.
or unethical.
Right.
We're just not.
Right.
As a general rule, we avoid those situations.
Yeah, as a general rule, you're exactly
And
correct. We're all not perfect.
we will also call you out in a heartbeat because we don't want to be associated with something that we find that could be perceived as something shady.
Yeah,
I like him.
I do too. We as a group, former law enforcement, retired law enforcement, all of that, quasi law enforcement like I was, we don't suffer fools. I mean, that's a terrible way to put it. It's kind of offensive in a way. But the fact of the matter is, we tend to call out what's black and white, and and unfortunately for me, in politics, there's a lot of gray, and we have to tolerate the gray, but try to push the black and white. That's the way I try to do it. And my board, some of them, they look at me like, you lost your mind. You can't operate that way. Well, sometimes when a contractor, for instance, is not upholding their end of the bargain, at some point you need to hold his feet to the fire. Or her feet to the fire. I'm sorry, good, bad, or indifferent, if you're not doing what's beneficial for Bailey, I'm not going to keep you around long.
And also, talking about politics, congratulations on your recent appointment to the Nash County GOP Executive Board, and congratulations on being selected for Vice Chair of the Nash County GOP Executive Board. Congratulations on that.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. That occurred while I was in D.C. Anybody out there in TV land that's ever been voluntold to do something, I know your pain. I feel your pain.
But there's a lot of people on the GOP Executive Board that like how you address things, how you go after things. Look at what you're doing for Southern Nash County.
Yeah.
Okay, they like your leadership style, your availability. They like what you're doing.
And I appreciate the confidence that the board has and the voters at the district and at the Nash County Convention. I appreciate the role that our chairman has. He's been a long-term chairman. He's the longest-serving GOP chairman in the state.
He's a Southern Nash alumni.
He certainly is. He's actually younger than I am. He was in the class behind me at Southern.
What was that, 88, 89, 90?
He would have graduated in 90.
Okay, because I graduated
in 89.
89?
89, yeah.
Okay, so he was 90. So he graduated with my brother John, and I graduated in 92. I remember Mark from high school, but, I was in a different clique than Mark was.
Yeah, and I understand. I was not technically in a clique at Southern.
Well, I was with the crowd that was getting interviewed by the sheriff's department about different things going on.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about any of that stuff that happened in high school.
Okay.
I spent, my best friend moved to Wilson, went to Beddingfield, so I tended to gravitate more toward the Wilson area just because that's where
kids like me.
Yeah, well, no, that's where my friends. That's where my friends were, and so it was. I was kind of over there a lot. So I didn't hang out much in high school over here. I played golf, so we played golf together at Willow Springs in Wilson, which is kind of sad to me to see it go as a residential area, allegedly.
And we just touched on your career. For those that don't know, your law enforcement background. Tell everybody about that.
Well, in 1995, after 27 interviews, yes, it's very difficult to be a state employee, or at least it was when I was trying to be one. Yeah. I was appointed to be a probation parole officer in the great city of High Point, North Carolina, in Guilford County. At the time, it was the only county in the state that had 2 freestanding jails and 2 freestanding courthouses. We had our own set of DAs, even though the main DA was still elected and was stationed in Greensboro. He basically appointed a chief DA for us, and that DA did whatever he wanted to as far as our jurisdiction was concerned. But I did that for about 12 years. I worked the streets. I was one of the founding members of the Violent Crimes Task Force in High Point. We we had a murder rate that was outrageous for a town our size. We had a lot of gun crime, a lot of shootings, a lot of stabbings, and we, with the assistance of High Point Police Department, ATF, FBI, the alphabet soup, we formed the Violent Crimes Task Force, and we beat that crime rate to submission. Did we ever get it to zero? No. But when you have 20-some murders in a year and you drop it to 5, 6, 7,
it's results driven.
Yeah, it's very much results driven. We put the bad people in jail because most of the bad people, unfortunately, were on supervision of some sort. So I did that for 12 years. Then I moved into the security realm, and I ran the security contract for PTI Airport for 11 years. I worked directly for the airport authority at PTI Airport, GSO for anyone that flies in and out of there. You can't look it up at as PTI because you can't see it, but GSO is the code for it. So I did that, and I worked directly for the police chief there.
Okay. So extensive law enforcement background, sounds like 20, 25 years roughly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Sheriff Stone?
We have
the job he does.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a working sheriff.
Amen.
And that's not always the way it is. Okay? I was in Guilford County for 20 plus years, all right? B.J. Barnes was the sheriff when I was there early in my career. And yeah, we saw him, but he was not, and I think he would say himself he was not a working sheriff. That don't mean he didn't work. He didn't go out in the street and work, okay? There's a difference. Of course, he was also very heavyset. So, but BJ was, if we had a checkpoint, he was there. Wasn't there long, but he was there. Mm-hmm. He showed his face. But if I was in Nash County, Sheriff Stone would have been standing in the street with us, checking licenses and running people through our system.
Sheriff Stone has a reputation far and wide of being recognized in law enforcement circles as the best sheriff in North Carolina. And somebody told me over the weekend, they said, hey man, have you heard a rumor about John Doe running for sheriff in Nash County against Keith? I said, well look, I don't mean this ugly. The only thing they're gonna do is waste their time and somebody else's money.
Somebody else, you're exactly right. I can't say anything for the commissioner, for the board of the GOP directly, but I am going to be wholeheartedly in support of Sheriff Stone when he runs. Yeah. Until he decides he don't want to do that anymore, because quite frankly, he's given me no reason at all not to support him.
Yeah. Same here. And I wish him luck. Look, we need to take a break, pay some bills. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Oh, you remember my brother John Barnes, right?
I do. I certainly do. And by the way, B.J. Barnes is no relation. Okay.
That's your
they ain't even close. This is a little guy in comparison to B.J. B.J.'s about 6'4". And
definitely not related to my Barneses, because we're the Barneses that keep the seat rolled up under the steering wheel when we drive.
He used to drive a black Avalanche. Okay, that was his patrol vehicle, and he filled that front seat up, ladies and gentlemen. But they're no relation, because this is a little dude.
Everybody tells me I look like some golf player.
I saw
My
that picture.
wife, my kids,
I saw
everybody.
that
I can't
picture.
think of his name.
Well,
Well,
hey,
my life.
at least it's better than what people think I look like.
But this show, man, is sponsored by my brother John Barnes Electric. Look, if you need an electrician, new construction, service work, anything, John Barnes Electric, he is your go-to. I mean, he's been voted best electrician every year from 2016 through 2024. He's available 24/7. It's who I call when I need something. John Barnes Electric, full service electrical company. If you need him, give him a call, 252-442-7002, and let him know that you saw the ad on WIG TV. Again, if you need an electrician, reach out to John Barnes Electric. John, if you're watching, thanks for sponsoring the show.